We are now officially recording on the cloud, and this is Parsha, the Parsha class. The Parsha this week is Vayishlach, and Parshat Vayishlach is going to begin with our forefather Jacob. Jacob's on his return home, and he, of course, has a very significant worry on his mind. When he left home 21 years before, he was in a position where his brother Esav had sworn that he was going to kill him. And so Yaakov is returning because he is operating on two pieces of information simultaneously. Piece of information number one is that God has promised him that he will protect him wherever he goes. So now Yaakov is operating under the assumption that God is going to protect him. But the other piece of information is Yaakov knows that his brother has sworn that he's going to kill him. And so now this is like, in a way, this is his test of faith. This is his akedah, right? Because now Yaakov needs to know, am I in fact going to suffer at the hands of Esav? And so in addition to trusting in God, Yaakov takes another other measures. One of the things he does is he divides his camp so that his children, in some way or another, will be able to survive. And just as Yaakov has mobilized his family, and he is going to cross the Ma'avar Yabok, he's going to cross the Yabok River, which is in Jordan. It's a little bit south of Beit Shan. And the verses say, "Vayakam b'layla hahu, vayikach et shtei nashav, et shtei shivchotav, et achadasar yiladav, vayavor et ma'avar yabok." And that night he rose, taking his two wives, his two maidservants, and his 11 sons, and he crossed the ford of Yabok. Vayikachem v'yavirim et nacha, vayavar et asher lo. After taking them across the stream, he sent across all his possessions. Vayivater Yaakov livado, and Yaakov remained alone. He tarried alone. He was left alone. However, the word vayivater means he was extra. Extra means he was the last one left. Livado, alone. He was the only one there. Vayavek ish imo, and vayavek is a very difficult word to translate. It is here translated as he wrestled. But that, to me, is not the hardest word to deal with. The hardest word to deal with is Ish. Who is Ish? Where does the Torah tell, how are we supposed to interpret this mystery Ish? Right? Anybody want to yell out who the mystery Ish is?
Malach.
Malach. Good, Annie. Annie was looking at the picture to your left and says, it must be a malach, because Rembrandt said so. No, just kidding. Sorry. That was me being too...
Without wings.
What's that?
With or without wings?
With or without wings. But so, okay, so how do we know it's an angel? By what derivation are we going to come to the fact that this word ish means angel? Don't answer that just yet. I promise you, before we get to the end, I will answer that. But let's at least recognize that it doesn't say angel. It says ish, right? It says that it is a person there of some form or another. Ad olot hashachar, until the morning light breaks through. So here we have this struggle between Yaakov and literally someone of mystery. And Vayar kilo yacholo, and when he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he vayiga bekaf yirecho, and he wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket. Vateka, and he teka means made it stuck or permanent. Now, again, a lot of these words are going to be very, very difficult to translate, right? Yerecho does not necessarily mean his thigh or his hip socket. No one can tell you that that's exactly what it means. I saw a very funny post somebody said the other day. says, I don't understand Israelis. You Israelis have not yet come up with a separate word for hands and feet. Regel means both leg and foot, and yad means both arm and hand. And Israelis use them interchangeably. And English, of course, has arm and, right? Is that correct, Annie?
Yes, it is.
Right? So body parts are, I mean, I'm sure there are more specific body parts. We know that there's a word called kaf yad, which means those are the palm of the hand. Kaf regel, which means sort of the foot. But people don't use those. So body parts are interchangeable. And I will tell you that the last time the word Yerecho was used in the book of Bereshit, it did not refer to a thigh or a hip socket.
Was it not when Abraham makes Eliezer swear that he would find a wife from his house, from his relatives?
It was 100% when Eliezer, first of all, he's not called Eliezer, he's called Eved Avraham. And it was when Eved Avraham had to take that oath. Right? Okay, good. And what does Eved Avraham swear upon there? So I know we want to think that, but if you read Rashi there, and there's a good reason to say that this is true, he's swearing on Abraham's progeny. He's swearing on a meit mitzvah. He's not meit mitzvah. He's swearing on a chefta shel mitzvah, an object of mitzvah, which is the brit milah. This is a very gentle term for something quite sensitive, and it could be that that's what the angel struck at. Now, before we think that this is too sensitive a subject, I'm going to try and convince you that that makes a ton of sense. Okay. Vayomer shacheni ki ala shachar. And so what did this, right? So he wrenched Jacob's hips at its socket, so the socket of the hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, let me go, for dawn is breaking. But he answered, back to the Hebrew. Vayomer shacheni ki ala shachar. Let me go, the morning breaks. Vayomer lo eshal lechacha. I will not let you go, ki im berachtani, unless you give me a blessing. Vayomer elav, and he says, ma shimcha. What is your name, stranger that I wrestle with? Vayomer Yaakov, and he says, my name is Yaakov. Vayomer, and the ish, angel, whatever you want to call this individual. Lo Yaakov ye'amer od shimcha. We will no longer call you Yaakov, ki im Yisrael. Rather, you will now be called Yisrael, ki sarita im Elohim v'im anashim vatucha. Because you have wrestled with man and with God, and you have overcome. So, this is, without question, a difficult passage in the Torah. Very graphic, very emotive. We can appreciate Jacob's fear. We can appreciate how anxiety-provoking this is. We can appreciate this. It sounds like a fever dream that Yaakov is having. And why is the Torah recording this? Right? If I removed this episode from the story, the plot would move along just fine, except for one very crucial detail. The name that we forever adopt for our people would be missing. We would not know what Yisrael was about. It is true that Yaakov never completely disappears, not in terms of the individual, not in terms of the nation. There's still, when God says to Moses before Sinai, he says, Ko tomar levet Yaakov. Thus you shall speak to the house of Jacob. Ko taged livnei Israel. This is what you shall say to the children of Israel. Yaakov and Israel remain as joint names, although I think we can agree that Yisrael is primary, but that's the only sort of long-term contribution, maybe, of this scenario. Now, a week ago, Shabbat, I shared with you something which I think is very, very important. When we read the Torah, you can read this as a historical moment that happened to a man whose name was Yaakov exclusively. He was born Yaakov, he lived as Yaakov, he went to Lavan as Yaakov, he married Rachel as Yaakov, he married Leah as Yaakov, not in that order, obviously in the opposite order, right? He tended sheep is the name of Yaakov. He was Yaakov, 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 Yaakov until this moment. You can all read it about one very particular person who walked this earth at a particular moment. But this can all, when you read the stories of Esav and Yaakov, I think there is a very legitimate read that they are not Esav and Yaakov as they represent historical individuals, but rather as they represent the patriarchs of future peoples. Esav will represent Edom, Rome, Christianity, and Yaakov will become Israel, will represent the children of Israel. And this moment is a moment that reflects not the momentary struggle of two historical individuals, but the chronic struggle of two very particular peoples. And what gives me the gumption to say such a thing? I'll tell you what gives me that gumption. Skip that slide for a minute. Well, I promise I'll get back to that slide. This is Nachmanides. This is Nachmanides' interpretation of the moment when the Ish could not see that he prevailed. According to at least one rabbinic tradition, this is the Saro Shel Esav. Well, actually, before I get to the Ramban, let me go back a slide and tell you why I think Ish means a malach, means an angel. I could have chosen other ones, but this is my favorite. There is this moment in the book of Joshua where Joshua is ready to fight Jericho, and at night he goes out and he meets a very strange individual. And this is in chapter 5. It says, Vayi biyot Yoshua b'Yericho. This is when Yoshua was Yericho. Vayisaynav, and he lifted his eyes up. Vayar v'hinei ish omed lenegdo, and he sees there is an ish, there is a man standing opposite him. V'charbo shlufa biyado, and his sword rests in his hand. Vayelech Yoshua elav, and Joshua goes to him. Vayomer lo halanu ata im litzarenu. Are you with us or are you against us? Right, I'm going to the translation now. Once, when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man, Ish, standing before him. And with his drawn sword in his hand, Joshua went up to him and asked him, are you one of us or one of our enemies? Halanu ki'im litzarenu. Lanu is with us, litzarenu is our enemies. And so the man replied, Lo, ki ani sar tzva Hashem. I am the commander of God's armies. I'm the commander of God's hosts, right? Choose your translation. Either one works. Vayipol Yoshua el panav arza, and Joshua bowed down. Vayishtachavu vayomer lo ma adoni medaber elavdo. What does God have to say to his servant? So this is a beautiful comparison, because here Joshua clearly meets an individual which is described as Ish, right? But it is also an individual who is clearly an angel. It's also an individual who is clearly an angel. The angel is such that when Yoshua meets him, what does Yoshua do? He immediately takes the subservient position. You meet the angel of God, okay, your wish is mine. Yeah, tell me your command, right? And the verse says as well, Vayipol Yoshua. Yoshua fell on his face. He bowed down low. Right? That is not the impression you get from Yaakov. The impression is not that Yaakov bowed down low or anything like that. The impression is that Yaakov is now struggling with this heavenly figure, this angel.
Question that Yaakov didn't know at the beginning who he was struggling with?
Oh, I think absolutely. What is clear is that both the text and Yaakov and the angel don't know who they're struggling with. The angel has to ask him his name.
Yeah. Yaakov at the beginning wasn't sure if it was a man or who it was he was struggling with.
Right. Well, we doesn't, no, we don't know, right? Vayivater Yaakov levado, Yaakov was alone, Vayiavek ish imo, and an ish struggled with him. I'm just giving you the textual parallel that will let you know that the word ish can mean angel. Now, I could have also chosen to use the plural of the word ish. The plural of ish is anashim, and we have three anashim who meet Abraham, who are also clearly angels. They're referred to as angels later on in the narrative. So I could have chosen that. I like the one from Joshua a little better because it's got a military aspect to it. It's got two people alone. It's got a dimension to it which seems to me a closer parallel, but a very different mode of interaction. But I would say that, and that is also cited, I think, by Radak as part of the evidence for the fact that we can say this is an angel. Now, this is Ramban's category, not Tom Kelly. Forgive the pre-populated fields. And he saw that he prevailed not against him. Ye angels of his, ye mighty in strength, that fulfill his word. Because of this angel, because of it, the angel could not prevail against him to harm him, for it was not permitted to him to do other than that which he did to him. In other words, the angel was given some specific instructions. The angel's job was not to hurt Jacob. The angel's job was to engage Jacob, and maybe only to hurt his hip. Maybe he had instructions to do that too. Namely, to disjoint the hollow of his thigh. Now, the rabbis have said in Bereshit Rabbah, he touched all the righteous people who were destined to come from Jacob. This refers to the generation of religious persecution. This refers to religious persecution during the reign of the Emperor Hadrian, 117 to 138 of the Common Era. Now, just let's hold our horses. The Ramban is doing not Jacob, he's sort of doing both. He's doing both because he has a very spiritual way of understanding this, and he is a Kabbalist, and for him there will the interconnection between Jacob the person and Jacob the people is not something which is divisible. It's not something which is separable. But let's just leave that Kabbalism alone for a minute, and he's basically saying it was not his thigh that he disjointed. That's because in English we might want to use the word yerech as thigh, but he hurt his progeny in literal sense. What does that mean? It means the Emperor Hadrian, who is an emperor of Rome. Rome is Edom. Edom is red. Esav was Admoni. He was a ruddy one. He was red. He is Edom. Esav is Edom. And now you have the embodiment of Edom, Hadrian, who is persecuting the Jews. This is the persecutor of Rabbi Akiva and the Bar Kokhba rebellion and the 10 Zasara Haruge Malcha, Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion, and all of these famous rabbis who died by martyrdom for teaching Torah. The Ramban is going to tell you the struggle between Yaakov and Esav is ultimately the struggle between Rome and the Jewish people. Now I'm going to ask you a question. Who won that battle? We didn't?
Rome.
We lost.
We lost. It wasn't a final loss. I would say that Akiva's story is immortalized. That there is, I don't know how many fans there are of Hadrian today.
No, but there's no Roman Empire today, and we're still around. Right?
Oh, and okay, so Sue just said there's no Roman Empire, and we're still all around. So all of a sudden, this story takes on a whole new meaning. You Jewish people, you are going to wrestle with lots of others on your way home. You are going to wrestle with Hadrians and Hamans and Pontius Pilates and Hitler. Yes, also Hitler's. right? And they are going to hurt you. And I think in this interpretation, you have to stop saying it's a hip. It's not a hip. They're going to hurt your future. They're going to attack your children. Right? But you will prevail. This is, if you will, what other story reminds you of they're going to attack your children, but you will survive? Or the children will be in the crosshairs of the knife and you will survive.
With Paro.
The Akedah, right? Sue said, it's the binding of Isaac.
Okay.
Right? Is this not the binding of Isaac? But now the Ramban is going to say this is a future fight. This is a figurative fight. This is a fight that will not stop, that has not stopped. We are all crossing that river. You think you're not crossing that river on the UBC campus? You think you're not crossing that river in Columbia University? You think you're not crossing that river in the BC Teachers Union? Do you think you're not crossing that river in if you're a freelance poet? Yeah, you are crossing that river today. This is the Ma'avar Yabok. This wrestling is not done. Now, Leon Kass has a very interesting additional read to this. Leon Kass says that the idea that this is Esav's angel is a reworking of the fact, this is a rebirthing of Jacob. Crossing water bodies are birthing moments in the Torah. I'll give you two other examples, right? When the Jews walk through the sea, they are born anew as a nation. When they cross the Jordan, they are born as a nation with a land. So here, when we cross the Yabok River, Jacob is born anew. They are wrestling in the nighttime, in the dark, if you will, the dark of the womb. Where does Jacob and Esau first wrestle? They first wrestle in the womb.
In mother's womb.
In their mother's womb. But there is a critical difference between these two moments. In this particular episode, it is in the first episode, Yaakov gets his name because his leg is held back, his foot is held back by Esav.
No, he's holding Esav's foot. Esav is born first, so Yaakov is holding his.
Correct. Nachon. Esav is born first because Yaakov holds his first. But Yaakov's name,
yes,
the foot becomes attached to his name, the grabbing of a heel, right? Mm-hmm. And in a sense, the fact that he lost the fight lends him his name, right? Would you agree with that, Annie?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. His name comes from the fact that he lost the fight. And here, he is allowed to pass, and his name, he loses the name of Yaakov. And last but not least, because Yaakov lost the first battle of the womb, right? So there, he is therefore the second child. He therefore needs to buy the birthright. He therefore needs to engage in some kind of deception in order to get the bracha. So he doesn't have a sense that the brachot are authentic on him. When he finishes this one, he gets to know that the brachot are authentic. I don't want to leave with, this is, unfortunately, this is a shorter session than we usually have because of the AGM, but I want to leave you with one idea that I heard from Rabbi Chaim Sabato, who says he heard it from his brother. And that is the nature of angels and the Satan in Jewish literature. the nature of the angels and the Satan is not to trip people up. It is not the Christian idea of temptation. It's not the idea that God gives the devil the province of evil and the devil's job is to go out there and make people evil. That's not how Jewish angels work. The way Jewish angels work is they are there to make you stronger. But the only way they can make you stronger is by challenging you. And so here, the struggle with Esav is a necessary part. The Saro shel Esav, the angel, whatever the angel's job is, the angel's job is to make Yaakov stronger. That the difficulties, the wrestling, it is because he struggles with the angel, because he struggles with the angel of Esav, right? He is not going to be the subservient. He's not going to bow down like Yoshua to the commander of God's hosts.
But he still comes out wounded. There is a
I'm going to say, I'm going to say, I'm going to go back like the Ramban. The Ramban does not understand this to mean he is wounded of himself. It is that his children are destined to repeat this fight. Yerech is not